screamed that my family ruined my birthday while my sister went into baby mode, leading to a humiliating family meltdown. I'm 16F. My mom is Linda, 52, my first sister is Jade, 27, my second sister is Bella, 25, my brother is Luca, 20, my dad is John, 55, my friend is Eric, 17, and my brother-in-law is Kyle, 27. Yesterday was my birthday. The day started off just fine, nothing out of the ordinary, but when it was time for dinner, everything took a turn. In my family, it's a tradition that the birthday person chooses where to eat and who comes along. I've been looking forward to this because I thought, for once, I'd get to pick the company and the spot. My plan was to keep it simple, just Jade, Kyle, Eric, and me. That was supposed to be the entire group. But things didn't go my way. Kyle was running late, and before I knew it, Linda decided she would tag along. I was already pretty annoyed at her because she'd been telling me that I was wasting Eric's time, but I decided not to let it ruin my day. Eric was understanding when I explained and told me not to worry. As we were about to leave, Linda stopped me at the door and asked, "Aren't you going to invite the others?" I didn't want to dive into the whole mess about why I'd rather not have Bella there, so I folded and went along with it. Suddenly, the intimate dinner I had planned became a whole family affair, minus John. I tried to keep my irritation down because it was my birthday, after all. But almost instantly, things started to sour. Jade and Bella got into it, talking trash about each other. It spiraled fast, and soon Bella was in tears, running to her room, wailing in this babyish voice about how nobody loved her and she'd be better off dead. Luca and Linda left to go comfort her, and now I was just wishing the night would end. We finally got to the restaurant, got seated, and then it happened again. Bella turned on the waterworks and started saying the same dramatic lines about us hating her and that she'd be better off dead. Instantly, everyone turned their attention to babying her. She has this fetish for acting like a baby. I couldn't take it anymore. I started crying, right there at the table, where everyone could see. By the time we left, I'd managed to calm down a bit because I needed to get my cake. Nobody even thought to buy me one in advance. I brought my cake home, and, just as I was about to try and salvage what was left of my day, Bella started up again. I lost it. I told her to pull herself together and stop ruining another one of my birthdays by making it about herself. She stormed off. That was the final straw. I ended up with some sad, half-hearted cake and a present with zero thought behind it. When I finally got out of the bathroom after crying, I told my sisters and my mom exactly how I felt, that I was incredibly disappointed, and sad that I couldn't have just one day where things could be about me, and how they always seemed to behave perfectly well on other people's birthdays but not mine. I was crying again by this point, and everyone immediately started blaming me, claiming it wasn't their fault. I finally snapped, yelling, "You all fucking ruined my birthday, do you want a cookie or something?" At that, everyone got offended. Bella started telling everyone that I hate her and want her dead. Jade turned the blame around on me for being ungrateful about her gift, and Linda just pinned everything on me. Then, as if my day couldn't get any worse, I almost got hit by a car. Why do they even give licenses to some people? Now, let me explain why I feel the way I do, because I know on the surface it probably seems like I'm just being cold or even cruel for not wanting my family around. The reality is I didn't want Bella there for reasons going way beyond petty arguments. Every time I pick a restaurant, she complains, always in this pouty baby voice. She has no allergies or health issues, she's just extremely picky, like my brother-in-law, Kyle. She's ruined other special moments for me, too, my quinceañera being one of them. The real problem is the way she forces her boyfriend into my life. I've got my reasons for being uncomfortable around adult men, serious trauma from my childhood, and yet Bella pushes him on me repeatedly. She doesn't get it, doesn't care, and doesn't respect my boundaries at all. Her ex-boyfriend tried grooming me, not for the first time in my life, which Bella totally brushed off. I used to stand up for her when the rest of the family trash talked her and defended her way of being, but when it came down to it, she picked a guy who hurt her own sister over me. To make it worse, that same ex ended up grooming a 16-year-old and, as far as I know, has done it to others too. There's another side to Bella, too. She's deep into age play. She acts like a baby, especially when she isn't the center of attention, complete with tantrums, baby voice, pacifiers, and the rest. She does this to everyone whether we like it or not, and it makes people deeply uncomfortable. That's why I mentioned the kink, and I apologize if that offends anyone or if I'm confusing it with something else, but that's what it feels like. I didn't want Linda there either, because she finds something to complain about every single time we go out. It doesn't matter if it's the food, the decor, the people in the restaurant, usually me, or anything else. She can't even order food without hating it and making comments about how Mexican food is better. She's also extremely racist and will purposely call people, including Jade, Kyle, and Luca, slurs. As for my dad, the reason he wasn't there is because he works late, but even when he is around, he never shows up for anything, not my achievements, not competitions, nothing. He's told the family, to my face, even, how disappointed he was that I was born a girl, and he walked out on my mom in the delivery room when he found out. He openly favors sons, is sexist and misogynistic, and has zero table manners. He'll burp or fart at the table, and even do it in my face while I'm eating, then call me soft for not liking it. He threatens, and sometimes does, hit over the smallest things, like me being tired after a long day. One time when I was 12, I came home exhausted after school and just collapsed onto my bed. He barged in, yelled at me for being lazy, threatened violence unless I got up to cook for him, and then insulted my cooking afterward, which, again, I was a literal child. When people say we're a dysfunctional family, believe me, they have no idea. Only reason I'm here is because I was born into a deeply twisted Hispanic household. I honestly don't think my mom should ever have married my dad. How they met is a whole other story. They're planning to divorce when I graduate, but honestly, I wish it had happened sooner. So no, I don't think it's too much to ask for a single day to be about me, and I really, truly needed to say all of this just so people understand why I finally snapped. Jade came along because, honestly, she's the sibling I mostly managed to get along with, and, let's be real, I didn't have a choice in the matter. She doesn't constantly whine about whatever place I pick to eat, but her complaints show up often enough to bother me. What really gets under my skin, though, is how she can't stop body shaming me. According to her, I need to gain weight or else my clothes will just fall right off. She'll criticize my appearance, my hair, my weight, my face, really, anything she can find. If I ever call her out for being cruel or if I get upset and start crying, suddenly she's the one in tears. Then mom swoops in, furious with me, and calls me an ungrateful brat for hurting Jade when she does so much for me. Jade is convinced I want to steal Kyle away from her. I can't even begin to explain how much that grosses me out. Let her keep him, because I certainly don't want him. There was one time, right after I finished exercising, that she started accusing me of trying to show off for her boyfriend. I was 15 at the time, wearing a totally normal tank top and sweatpants, yet she claimed I was dressing inappropriately and trying to get his attention by dressing like a slut. I couldn't believe it. How is a basic tank top and sweats sexy to anyone, let alone the fact that I'm a minor? The whole thing made my stomach turn. Being around Luke is like enduring nails on a chalkboard. He can only talk about how the world is always out to get him. He complains about everyone, throws around insults, especially toward the women in our family, calling us idiots and fat whales, and behaves like he's single-handedly better than everyone else. Kyle's presence wasn't my choosing. Of course not. Jade was the one who invited him, yet somehow I'm expected to refer to him as my brother-in-law. They aren't married, not yet, at least, but if I so much as call him anything else, I get grief about it, especially from Jade and mom. Eric? He wanted to take me out to dinner, to this restaurant he knows I like. But mom flat out refused to let me go. Apparently, in her mind, I can't be trusted because she thinks I'm planning to sleep with him or something, which is beyond disgusting. Her solution was to force Jade to tag along and keep an eye on me. Suffice to say, that dinner wasn't exactly a relaxing escape. Update, I went to bed thinking the worst had already happened. I was wrong. Around 12:40 a.m., there was pounding on the door, like the kind that makes your heart thud in your throat. Linda opened it and there were 2 deputies and a paramedic on the porch asking for Bella by name. Someone at the restaurant had called in a welfare check because of the better off dead stuff. Linda immediately went into hostess mode, all sugar and fake calm, saying everything was fine and it had just been a little sister drama, but they insisted they needed to see Bella and talk to her alone. Bella came out of her room in a hoodie with a pacifier string still clipped to it like she'd forgotten to take it off, and when they asked her if she'd said she wanted to die, she did the baby voice and said, "Nobody loves me, so what's the point?" It was like pouring gasoline on the situation. The paramedic got very gentle but very firm, explained what a hold is and that when you say certain things in public, people have to take you seriously. Linda started yelling at me across the hallway, "Are you happy now? On your birthday?" And Jade jumped in telling mom to shut up because the cops were literally right there. They took Bella for evaluation. She cried and clung to Linda and kept looking at me like I'd done it to her. Watching them put her in the ambulance while the neighborhood curtains twitched made my stomach flip. As soon as the doors closed, Linda turned around and told me I was a monster. She said I weaponized Bella's mental health to get attention. I told her I didn't call anybody and that it's not normal to say those things out loud in the middle of a restaurant. Luca came downstairs rubbing his eyes, took one look at the lights and went, "Dramatic much?" And then told me I could have kept my mouth shut and we'd all be asleep. That was enough for me to grab my shoes and my bag and sit on the curb just to breathe. Eric came and picked me up. I didn't even ask, he saw the ambulance lights on my street from a block over and texted if I was okay. His mom was in the passenger seat in her bathrobe and slippers, hair in a messy bun, and when Linda stormed outside and started accusing Eric of swooping in to steal me, his mom just said, "Calm as you like, we're taking her to our house to sleep. Call me in the morning if you actually want to talk." She handed Linda her card with her name on it like it was the most normal thing. Linda threatened to call the police. The deputy who was still parked by the curb tilted his head and said, "We're already here, ma'am." I slept on their couch under a clean blanket that smelled like fabric softener and garlic because someone had made actual food earlier in the night. No yelling. No slurs. No footsteps stomping past my door. I woke up to a tiny cupcake on a saucer with a candle in it because Eric's mom asked him what flavor I liked and sent him out at 6 a.m. to the store before school. I almost cried into the frosting, which would have been embarrassing if it didn't feel like the first real birthday moment I got. My phone was a war zone. Linda had blown up the family chat with pictures of Bella's wristband from the psych ER and a paragraph about how I've always been jealous of my sisters. Jade DM'd me a photo of the ambulance with "this is insane" and then a separate message telling me she'd told mom to back off and mom told her to pack her bags if she loves me so much. Luca called me a snake and said I'm dead to him. Dad didn't text at all. He called from work around noon, said 5 sentences that somehow all included the word disrespect, and told me to come home and apologize to your mother and your sister like I didn't exist as a separate person in that equation. Kyle, of all people, was the only one in that house who acted like a normal human being. He texted asking where I was and if I needed anything from my room. I told him I needed my backpack, my sketchbook, and the folder with my documents because Linda will lose things when she's mad. He drove over on his lunch break, grabbed my stuff, and dropped it at Eric's. He didn't come in, he just handed it to Eric through the gate and said, "I'm sorry about last night," in this quiet voice I've never heard him use. Then he said something that made me sit down. Jade had apparently planned to announce her engagement at my dinner. She had a ring in her purse. Kyle found out and told her he wasn't doing that and that he wanted to do it privately later, and she accused him of ruining her moment. He shrugged at me like he wished the concrete would swallow him and left. Bella got discharged in the afternoon with a referral for outpatient therapy. She posted a story with the wristband and a filter that made it sparkle, captioned "Some people are happy now." I didn't reply. Linda called around dinner to tell me that my drama has government people poking their noses in. A social worker had already left a voicemail on the house phone asking to speak with the adults and the minor children in the home because of the police report. Linda said if I ran my mouth to anyone, she'd make sure I regretted it. I told her I didn't run anything. The neighbors and a whole restaurant already saw everything and I was done covering for them. She laughed and hung up. Eric's mom asked me if I wanted her there when the social worker came. I didn't know that was an option. She also asked me what I wanted to do for school because missing another day would screw me over in chemistry. She drove me to school this morning and waited outside the counselor's office while I explained why I looked like I hadn't slept in a week. The counselor already knew because the welfare check had hit the school's radar somehow, and she asked me if I felt safe going back home that day. I said not really. She asked for Eric's mom's number and now everything's suddenly official and paperwork and it feels like I'm living someone else's life. Dad finally showed up in person tonight. He walked into Eric's driveway like he owned it and demanded I get in the car. Eric's mom stepped between us. This woman who met me 2 days ago, put her hand up and said, "She's not going anywhere she doesn't want to go." He did that smile he does before he gets mean and said she was interfering with his parenting. She told him to call the social worker because she wasn't having a screaming match in front of her hydrangeas. He started in on me about how I was embarrassing the family, throwing around Hispanic households handle things in-house like that means I have to eat whatever they dish out. I told him I wasn't getting in his car. He called me soft and turned to leave with a "you'll see," which is his favorite threat. I'm writing this from the guest room because Eric's mom decided I wasn't sleeping on the couch again and made me take a shower and then handed me pajamas still warm from the dryer. She stuck her head in the doorway and asked if I like pozole and if my dad has any allergies she should know about in case he actually tries to come inside next time. She doesn't even like him and she's asking about his allergies. That's the difference. Small. Human. Not performative. I don't know where this goes. Bella texted me a half apology that was more like a "sorry you feel that way" and then asked if she could borrow my red pajama set for a TikTok. Jade sent me a crying selfie from her car and said she and Kyle are taking a break until things calm down, which of course is somehow also my fault. Luca posted a meme about snakes that everyone thinks is about me. Linda left me a voicemail saying if CPS shows up, I better come home and act like we're a happy family or she'll tell them I'm promiscuous and unstable and not to be trusted alone with boys. She said that like it was a card she's been holding on to. Update 2. The social worker has a name, Ms. Rojas, and a voice like she's been doing this since before I was born. She showed up at Eric's house at 8 in the morning with a canvas tote and a notebook and asked if we could sit at the dining table. Eric's mom poured coffee for her and tea for me and then vanished on purpose so there weren't 3 adults hovering. Ms. Rojas looked at me like a person, not a problem, and said, "Do you want to be here?" I told her yes. She wrote, "Voluntary safety plan," and explained it like she was narrating a cooking show. "For 2 weeks, I stay here, no surprise pickups. My parents go through her if they want to see me. I can say no to anything I don't want." She asked if there were birth certificates or documents I needed, and I said, I had them, because I did, until I didn't. She'd already been to my house. Linda gave her a tour of the family home and made sure the fridge doors were open and the beds were perfectly made like we ever lived like that. Ms. Rojas said she'd be going back later to speak with everyone individually. She asked about my dad and whether he'd get physical if he was told no. I said sometimes he gets very close to it and that he thinks no is a word you spit on. She nodded like it matched the file she already had in her head and then handed me her card with her cell number written on it in real ink, not photocopied. At school the admin called me down during second period. Ms. Rojas was in a conference room with the principal and the school officer when Linda and my dad walked in like they were co-headlining a show. Linda was in her church cardigan, the one she wears when she wants to look respectable, and my dad's jaw was already grinding. Ms. Rojas made them sit and said, "We have a plan," and slid the single sheet across the table. My dad said, "I didn't sign anything," and she said, "You don't have to." Your daughter did. He did the smile without teeth and said, she's a child, and she said, and I'm the state. I swear the air changed. Linda tried the thing she always tries. She's been sneaking around with that boy, like Eric is a curse word. Then she said the word pregnant and the principal's eyebrows almost left her face. Ms. Rojas didn't blink. She asked me if that was true. I said, no, because it's not, and she said, okay, and looked back at my mother. False accusations are documented, Ms. She said Linda's last name very clearly, like it was a warning label. My dad leaned forward with both hands on the table. The school officer put his hand on his own belt like he hadn't decided whether he needed it, but he wanted my dad to see he remembered it existed. Ms. Rojas said, you can have supervised contact in a public place this weekend if she agrees. You will not remove her from school or from Ms. Rivera's residence. Eric's mom has a last name that sounds like a soft blanket. It was satisfying. When they walked me back to class, Linda hissed, ungrateful, like breath through a crack. Dad muttered, you'll see. I didn't look back. I had a pop quiz in chemistry and got an 86 and almost cried on the stoichiometry because it felt like proof I could keep going. The moment I got my phone back, there were 3 missed calls from an unknown number. When I picked up the 4th, it was Kyle. He skipped hello. Do not come home, he said, like I had been planning to walk straight into a trap. Linda told Luca to take your folder from the hall closet. He thinks it's a game, he's bragging about it. He was whispering, like he was in the bathroom at work. I told him Ms. Rojas was already clocking the document thing. He asked if I wanted him to check the house during his break and I said no because I didn't want him getting caught in the crossfire on my behalf. He said, I can be quiet sometimes, and hung up. He wasn't quiet, though. He texted a photo 2 hours later of my folder on the seat of his car, the corner bent, my name in my handwriting, and then another, of him placing it in Ms. Rojas's hands in the parking lot of her office like an Amazon drop-off. I don't know what possessed him to do it, but it made my chest hurt in a weird way. Ms. Rojas called me right after and said, got it, and then, good call telling me they misplace things when they're angry. She sounded pleased and also like she'd been waiting for them to do exactly that. I didn't go to Eric's house after school. I went to the park by the community center because Ms. Rojas said if anyone wanted to talk, it had to be out in the open. Linda and Jade were already sitting on a bench like they'd been posing for half an hour. Jade's eyes were puffy and she had hiccup breath. Linda was on her phone pretending to be busy. When she looked up at me, her face clicked into sad mother. Look at what you've done to your sister, she said, because she can never just speak to me about me. Jade started crying immediately, then said, Mom, stop, in this tiny voice I almost didn't recognize. My heart did a stupid thing where it got soft. Jade wiped her face with her sleeve and said, to me, to the air, I took a test. I didn't understand at first, because I'm not used to getting told the truth straight. She pulled a Walgreens bag out of her purse and I thought, God, she brought the whole store, but there was one thing in it and it had 2 lines and my mouth tasted like pennies. Linda said, we're very blessed, like she'd been rehearsing that sentence for an audience. Jade looked like she wanted to throw up in the grass. She said, I didn't want to tell you like this, and then, I don't know what to do. Linda told her, we'll do a proper announcement in church, and I actually barked a laugh. It came out mean and shocked and human. Jade's eyes flicked to mine like save me. I asked if Kyle knew. She shook her head. Linda said he'd know when it was time and I said, it's his kid, and Linda said, he's barely family. Then she glanced at Ms. Rojas's car parked across the street and changed her pitch. We're a happy family, she said, enunciating each word like they were beads on a rosary. Ms. Rojas crossed the grass without making a sound in her flats. She sat on the end of the bench and said, congratulations, if that's what you want, to Jade, one eyebrow raised just enough to make it a lifeline. Linda's mouth opened, but Ms. Rojas kept talking. If you need prenatal care resources, I have those. If you need options counseling, I also have those. If you need a safe place to be where no one is forcing you to make an announcement, I can help with that too. Linda went stiff. Jade nodded so fast her ponytail bounced. She whispered, please. Linda stood up like she'd been shot. Over my dead body, she said. Ms. Rojas's face did nothing. Noted, she said, and wrote something on her pad. I went home with Eric and watched a movie that didn't stick because my brain was a police scanner. I offered the guest room to Jade on text, but she didn't answer. At 10, there was a knock. Eric paused the movie and we both froze like burglars. It wasn't Jade. It was Luca, red-faced and swaggering, with a second-hand bravado that smells like cheap body spray. He tried to shoulder past Eric like he lives here. Eric is skinny in the way that fools people. He put his hand on the edge of the door and said, you're not coming in, man. Luca smirked and then did that thing where he talks over you so you can't think. Give me her stuff, he said. Mom needs her red pajamas back. He said it like a joke with a knife in it. Eric's mom came to the door in one of those long cardigans that make women look like they're about to save your life. She stood behind Eric and said, step off the porch, honey. He laughed and called her a name and the porch light flickered because someone somewhere decided dramatic lighting is free. The neighbor across the street lifted her blinds. Luca said, she's coming home right now, and then yelled, up. Like my name could rip me through a wall. The deputy from the other night rolled by. I swear he has a map of our house in his head now. He parked, got out, and said, "Evening," in that flat cop tone. Lucas shifted like he'd forgotten authority existed. The deputy asked him if he was aware of the safety plan on file. Lucas said, "She's a runaway," and the deputy said, "She's exactly where she's supposed to be." Lucas said Linda told him to bring me home, and the deputy said, "Go tell Linda to call her caseworker if she has concerns, and then, because he is a petty king, you're trespassing." Lucas slunk down the steps muttering about snakes again. He filmed us as he left like any of us are interesting. I thought that would be it for the night. It wasn't. At midnight my phone buzzed and didn't stop. It was Bella, live streaming from my room. My room. Wearing my red pajamas with the little white stars, prancing around like a toddler doing a catwalk, pacifier clipped to the collar. In the background, my dresser drawers were all open and my sketchbook was on the floor. People were sending hearts and laughing emojis, and one person asked if she was okay after the ambulance drama, and Bella pouted and said, "Nobody cares about me unless I'm dead," and then she picked up my journal and started reading. I felt hot all over. I typed stop. She saw it and pinned it. She shimmied and said, "Stop," in a baby voice, mocking me, and then read a page out loud about the cupcake this morning like it was a sin. My hands were shaking. Eric's mom put her hand on my shoulder like a seatbelt. I screen recorded the whole thing and sent it to Ms. Rojas with the caption, "This is my room. That's my journal." Ms. Rojas texted back 3 words, "Got it. Don't engage." Kyle called 5 minutes later, voice low again. "I'm outside," he said. I didn't ask why, I just slid into shoes and met him at the gate. He didn't come in. He handed me a manila envelope like we were doing a ransom drop. Inside were printouts and a little black USB. "From the other night," he said. "Linda made Jade practice telling CPS you're promiscuous. She said it was insurance." I hit record. I saw the waveform on the screen of his phone, a little green ocean of their voices. Linda telling Jade, "If you cry, it sells it." Jade saying, "Mom, this is gross." Linda laughing. There was another clip of my dad saying, "I'll drag her out, like I'm a sack of potatoes." Kyle looked wrecked. "I'm done," he said. "I told Jade if she wants to get married someday it has to be without lies." She threw a shoe at me. He checked the sidewalk like he was afraid of the dark. Before he left, he said, "I told her to tell you about the test." I said, "She did." He exhaled and shut his eyes and then opened them and was a person again. "If she texts you, answer," he said. "Please." He got back in his car and sat for a long time with it off like he was making a wish. At 3 a.m, because chaos is allergic to sleep, Jade texted me a blurred photo of the inside of a bathroom and the single saddest emoji. I called immediately. She answered whispering from a stall in a 24-hour Walgreens like she was hiding from a horror movie. "I threw up in the hair dye aisle," she said, and then started laughing and crying at the same time. I asked where she was and if she wanted me to come. She said, no, just stay on the phone, and then, "I don't want to be an announcement." I told her I could hear her and that was enough for right then. While we talked, I heard a tap on a different phone. The cashier had called someone. 10 minutes later Eric's mom walked into the Walgreens like an angel in pajama pants. She texted me, got her and put Jade in her car with a plastic bag and a bottle of water and drove her, not to Linda's, but to a quiet parking lot by the river where you can see the bridge lights. Jade got out and breathed like she hadn't done it in a month. Eric's mom has this way of setting a scene so your body cooperates with your brain. She said, "Do you want a doctor?" Jade nodded. They went to a 24-hour clinic. No announcements. No confetti cannons. Just a nurse with soft hands and a calendar. In the morning Ms. Rojas called and said, "I watched the live. I'll be by the house at noon," by which she meant my mother's. She asked if I wanted to retrieve my things with an escort. I said yes. We met on the corner. She had a second worker with her and the deputy in a different car, the one who knows my porch better than his own. Linda opened the door with a smile that could have cracked a mirror. Bella was on the couch with a blanket over her lap like we were the audience of her talk show. Luca was nowhere. Dad was at work, allegedly. Ms. Rojas held up a printout of the live screenshot and asked Bella, polite as tea, "Is this you reading your sister's private writing?" Bella said, in her kid voice, "I was just playing," and Ms. Rojas said, "Noted," and checked a box. She asked if my room was available to me. Linda said, "Of course," and moved aside like she was opening a museum. My room smelled like hairspray and my lotion mixed with someone else's. The bed was unmade, which is funny because Linda was giving magazine tours the day before. I grabbed what I could: jeans, underwear, the hoodie that still smells like the detergent Eric's mom uses, a handful of pencils, the little green frog keychain Eric gave me in 8th grade. Bella watched from the hallway with her thumb in her mouth like a caricature. When I brushed past, she stage whispered, "Sorry," and then, "Can I borrow the frog?" I didn't answer because it would have turned into a fight and Ms. Rojas's eyebrow can only do so much. On the way out Linda followed us with her phone, narrating like she was documenting a crime. "Look at this, everyone," she said to no one. "Look at my ungrateful child abandoning her family." Ms. Rojas turned around and said, very soft, "Put the phone down." And Linda did. It shocked both of us. We were barely back in the car when my dad turned into the street, saw us, and braked so hard his bumper kissed the curb. He got out and walked straight for my door like I was door number 3 on a game show. The deputy got out too, casually, one hand on his walkie, and called my dad by his first name. That stopped him. "She's under a safety plan," he said. "If you attempt to interfere, I will arrest you for interfering with an investigation." My dad puffed up. The deputy said, "I'm not asking." My dad's eyes slid to me and he did the smile. "You'll see," he mouthed. Ms. Rojas buckled her seat belt and said, "I don't think she will, actually," and we pulled away. I'm back in the guest room. There's a robe hanging on the closet door like the room belongs to someone loved. Jade is asleep on the couch under 2 blankets and a cat that wandered in from nowhere and decided to be family. Eric is at the table doing math and muttering. His mom is in the kitchen making pozole, because she promised, and the whole house smells like hominy and oregano and something I can't name but would fight to keep. I keep picking up the frog and putting it down. Ms. Rojas texted, "Kinship approval pending. 30 days likely. Check in tomorrow." It looks like a sentence and a lifeline at the same time. Bella posted a story of her wristband again with glitter, then took it down after 10 minutes. Luca posted another snake and tagged a rapper. Dad's truck did a slow roll past the house and then kept going. Linda left me another voicemail where she cried without tears and told me God sees what I'm doing. I deleted it. I went to take a shower to wash the house off of me. When I came out, there was a folded piece of paper on the bed with my name. I thought it was another note from Ms. Rojas. It wasn't. It was a drawing. Jade's. She'd found my sketchbook before Bella did and ripped out one page and kept it safe in her purse. It was a pencil drawing of a cupcake with one candle, the frosting taller than the cake, the flame a little heart. On the bottom she wrote, "Happy birthday, even if it's late," and a tiny apology in the corner like a secret. I sat down on the floor and cried, but this time it didn't feel like drowning. It felt like something else. I don't have a word for it yet. Maybe I don't need one. Maybe it's enough that I'm writing this in a room where nobody is pounding on the door and the worst noise is a cat snoring and a pot bubbling and Eric asking if I know what to do with a radical. And somewhere across town, Ms. Rojas is putting a file in a drawer with my name on it and a word she wrote in pen, safe.